You might wonder why, with all the controversies, doctrinal flip-flops, the number of people leaving, why so many still cling so tightly to the religion of Jehovah's Witnesses. It's intriguing, sometimes perplexing, often exasperating, especially if you want somebody out, or if you were never in the religion. It's just harder to understand if you weren't. What keeps some Jehovah's Witnesses so committed to that faith? Well, in this conversation, I'm going to try to shed some light on that for you to help you understand the intense hold that the religion has on its devoted followers and maybe give you a new perspective on what it's like to grow up within such a tightly knit community and such a high control group. Before I get into it, I wanted to thank Liz at Beth Sarim, great handle, for the comment that triggered my video on that, it sounds like a Christmas song to me, song that the Watchtower just released. I couldn't find her comment when I was looking for it to attribute that video to her. I just wanted to make sure that I gave her credit because it's thanks to her comment that I dug up all the information and made that video. So thank you very much, Elizabeth. Appreciate it. Let's dig into this together. While we discuss it though, remember, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a medical practitioner, I'm not a psychologist. This is just my opinion, but I grew up in it. I was in it for 40 years, so I think my opinion's valid. All right, so let's set the stage by talking a bit about who Jehovah's Witnesses really are and what they stand for. It's important for you to understand this to get it, all right? The group emerged in the late 19th century in the United States. It was founded by a guy named Charles Taze Russell. This guy was a bit of a character. He was a maverick in the religious scene of his time, really. He broke away from mainstream Christianity. He started doing other things, trying to get back to the Bible and remove everything else. That was what he thought. And the Witnesses are probably best known for their unique interpretations of the Bible because of him and the people who followed him. And probably, most notably, their prediction that the end of the world is imminent and that their predictions of the end of the world have failed many, many times. But one of the core beliefs is that Jehovah, the name that they use for God, is the true God, that all of the gods are false. All of the religions are false. They say they're from Babylon the Great. No one else is accepted. They believe that Jehovah's kingdom was established in 1914, an event that for them marks the beginning of the end times. They reject the concept of the Trinity, which is pretty standard belief in most of Christianity. They see it as unbiblical. And another key aspect is their view on neutrality. They don't participate in politics. They don't do military service or any nationalistic rituals. And that stems from their belief that they need to remain separate from the world's affairs. Now we're getting into it. Separation from the world. So the structure of the organization is pretty fascinating. They have a very top-down approach with the governing body, currently 9 older men at its pinnacle in the headquarters in New York. The governing body interprets the Bible for Jehovah's Witnesses, and they set rules that the witnesses worldwide are expected to follow. Individual witnesses are not allowed to have their own opinions on doctrine. All doctrine comes from the governing body, from the Watchtower. Below them, there's various levels of oversight. They have branches, which usually cover a country. You have districts that are made up of circuits, and then individual congregations. And those congregations have a body of elders. Community is huge for Jehovah's Witnesses because other witnesses are all they've got. From the outside, it probably seems like a pretty intense lifestyle because it is. They meet multiple times a week at the Kingdom Hall where they study their version of the Bible called the New World Translation and other publications that are put out by the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, which is their main organizational body worldwide. The meetings aren't just religious services, though. They're not like what you probably know if you go to church and hear a sermon and hang out with people and express your faith. These are opportunities for socializing and reinforcing their collective identity as witnesses. The emphasis on community has a lot to do with their practice of separation from secular society. And we're back to separation again. They often socialize only with each other. You find a few mavericks who'll associate with others, but they're not supposed to. All their social activities are with each other. They often center around religious practices like going out door to door together in their ministry work. And the separation extends so far as to also limit contact with some family members, depending on their belief system. This is a fundamental part of their faith. And what it all boils down to is that this tightly knit community distinctly sets itself apart from broader society on purpose. And for the members, especially those that were born into it like me, this isn't just a religion, it's a way of life. It encompasses every aspect of their existence. And it's this all-encompassing nature that helps us understand why leaving or even questioning the faith can be so complex and so challenging. So let's get into some of the psychology and the social foundations of this kind of commitment. Again, I'm not a psychologist, it's just my opinion. But when we dive deeper into why Jehovah's Witnesses stay so committed, even when faced with contradictions in their faith, you have to explore some intriguing psychological concepts. First up, cognitive dissonance. Now, this is when someone holds two conflicting beliefs or ideas at the same time, and it creates a kind of mental discomfort for the person. For someone that's raised as a witness, imagine being taught one set of beliefs your whole life, then encountering facts or ideas that completely contradict those teachings. It's not easy. It can really shake your sense of reality. It certainly did for me. When Jehovah's Witnesses face these kinds of contradictions, like changes in their doctrine, which happen all the time, they call it new light, or predictions about the end of the world that don't come true, which has happened repeatedly also, 1914, 1925, 1941, 1951, 1975, into the 20th century, and so on. This causes cognitive dissonance. And in order to reduce this discomfort, they have two choices, really. They can either change their beliefs to align with new evidence, or they can reinterpret the evidence they're receiving to fit their existing beliefs. Which one is easier? Well, more often than not, the choice is the latter. They just reinterpret things because changing core beliefs is very difficult, especially when your entire social network, including your family life, if they're all witnesses, revolves around you remaining in those beliefs. Now, let's talk about social identity theory, which is another concept in psychology, and it's a crucial piece of this puzzle. The theory suggests that a large part of your identity comes from the groups to which you belong. For Jehovah's Witnesses, their religion isn't just one group that they belong to, it's the whole thing. I mean, it is their group. It's a central part of who they are. It shapes their entire life, how they think, who they interact with, the kind of jobs they can have, how they view the world. Just everything you can imagine is dictated by their religion. And being part of this group provides a strong sense of belonging and purpose. Absolutely. It's not just about a religion. It's about a community that stands apart from the rest of the world. And they view the rest of the world as morally corrupt and doomed to die at Armageddon if they don't get right with God. This us versus them mentality reinforces that group identity, and it can make their bonds even tighter because you really believe that the only people that are going to exist after Armageddon comes are the ones there with you at the Kingdom Hall and at the other Kingdom Halls. So when you mix cognitive dissonance with that kind of strong social identity, you get a powerful cocktail that helps maintain that unquestioning commitment. Because questioning your faith, it doesn't just mean changing how you think. It means risking your entire social network, your friends, and often, your family, because they will shun you. And that's why, even when faced with doubts or discrepancies in the belief systems, many witnesses, they just double down and they stay committed. Because it's not just about faith. It's about preserving their place in this community that's central to the identity and their entire existence. It's important that you understand these dynamics. Well, it's crucial that you do. because it shows you that the hold of such a group, it's not just about beliefs. It's deeply psychological and it's deeply socially embedded. But it's not just psychology. There's also indoctrination. So let's talk about that. This is a major factor in why so many of Jehovah's Witnesses stay deeply connected to their faith. They are indoctrinated from a very young age. From the moment children are born into this community, they are immersed in these teachings. The indoctrination process is very thorough, and it starts incredibly early. Imagine toddlers sitting through meetings and Bible studies, absorbing the group's beliefs well before they even start school. There is no Sunday school with Jehovah's Witnesses. Those kids sit right in the audience and hear all these heavy adult themes from the time they're very young. This educational system inside the religion of Jehovah's Witnesses is designed to be all-encompassing. It's not just about learning what the scriptures say. That would be one thing. This is about framing the entire worldview of the members in the audience from childhood. Children and adults alike, they attend all the meetings, all of them, several times a week. They're supposed to. And in the meetings, they engage in discussions that reinforce the doctrines of their faith, and they hear talks that do the same. These aren't casual gatherings. They're structured to ensure that every aspect of the doctrine is ingrained. But it's not just at the Kingdom Hall that this happens. A key component of this indoctrination is personal Bible study sessions conducted using publications written by the Watchtower, the organization's governing body, in case you forgot. These publications interpret the scriptures in a way that aligns with the group's doctrines. They leave little room for personal interaction or dissent, and kids are taught, they're studied with by their parents or someone else in the congregation in these publications from the time they're very, very, very young. So these meetings and these studies, they're repetitive. They reinforce the same messages over and over and over again, and that's a classic technique of indoctrination. So it really lands in there and gets stuck. The repetition isn't just about learning. It's about making the teachings a mental framework within the member from which the members operate. Questions in doubt, very much discouraged, or they're framed as tests of faith. And answers that are provided are always from within that same framework. Again, you don't have room for personal interpretation. And this creates a loop from which it's very difficult to break free, because all intellectual roads, when you're a witness, lead back to what you've already been taught from the beginning. Is it starting to make sense why this is so tough, especially if you grew up in it? But these educational sessions, these Bible studies, these meetings, they also serve to reinforce the social fabric of the community. They're not just for learning. They're opportunities to bond with others in the hall, in the congregation, who share the exact same beliefs, to feel part of a unified group. And that social reinforcement, it makes the teachings even more powerful, because the beliefs aren't only held by individuals, but are shared by this tight-knit community that values conformity and unity. It demands it, really. It demands conformity. It demands unity. Again, no independent thought allowed, not when it comes to doctrines and things like that. And this combination of intense doctrinal education and community bonding, this belief system of Jehovah's Witnesses, they're not just taught. They're not just, hey, here's what we believe, take it or leave it. They're deeply embedded in the minds and the hearts of the members. And this indoctrination from a very young age is critical in understanding why members, especially those born in to the faith, remain so committed, even in the face of external criticisms and internal contradictions. You just have to get that in order to understand. And that's why I am very compassionate with the rank and file, because I've been there, done that, 40 years, I understand. Now let's get into more of those social and communal bonds, because one of the strongest forces that keep Jehovah's Witnesses committed to their faith is the power of those social and communal bonds. From the moment you become a part of this community, these relationships begin to weave a complex, supportive network around you. These aren't just your friends. They're the people who share your deepest beliefs and values, who attend the same meetings, participate in the same activities, and essentially see the world pretty much exactly the same way as you do. And they're also the only people you think are going to survive Armageddon. This shared perspective creates a very profound sense of belonging and solidarity, and that can be incredibly comforting and affirming. I know that's hard to understand, but it really can feel like you belong to something very special. You feel very protected in a way. But there's a flip side to that close-knit community, and you really need to understand this too, the consequences. What happens if you decide to leave? Because stepping away from Jehovah's Witnesses, it's not just a matter of you changing your mind about your beliefs, as it is with most religions. This is akin to severing your ties with your entire social world. They practice a strict form of shunning, which they officially call disfellowshipping, and it's a real threat. If you're disfellowshipped, or if you disassociate yourself from the religion, which means you just leave and formally resign, members, including your former friends and your family, are instructed to cut you off completely. Now imagine the impact of that for just a second. People you've grown up with, people you love, people you relied on, suddenly treating you as if you don't exist. Now, for a lot of witnesses, the potential loss of these relationships is a powerful deterrent against leaving or sometimes even questioning that faith. It's not just about losing friends, it's about potentially losing your family, your support system, your entire identity, because when you're a witness, that's your whole world. The emotional and psychological toll of that can be enormous. It's not easy. Trust me, I know. And this system of social reinforcement, potential punishment, it creates a powerful incentive to conform, to remain inside the group, to not question. The fear of social ostracism, it's palpable, and it's very effective in keeping members aligned with the group's doctrines and its activities. It's a mechanism that not only promotes unity within the community, but it also acts as a barrier against external influences and internal dissent. It's so strong that even people who wake up to the religion will often stay in. They're called PMO, physically and mentally out, so they don't get shunned. They pretend just to not get shunned. And the intertwining of personal relationships and religious adherence in this way, it ensures that for many of Jehovah's Witnesses, man, their faith is more than just a belief. It's their entire social reality. And leaving that, it means starting from scratch, not just in terms of your belief system, your religion, but socially and personally, sometimes professionally. That intense integration of life and faith, that's why social and communal bonds aren't just part of the witness's strength, but also a very significant part of the challenge for those who feel the need to leave. And it's sinister, man. Fear and control. That's what I want to talk about next, because it is sinister. The fear and control, they call it fog. Fear, obligation, guilt. Now let's delve into that a little bit, because this is very potent, and it's the way that Watchtower, it's what they use to maintain cohesion within their ranks. Fear as a control mechanism. Fear is a very powerful motivator. And in the context of this particular religious group, it's wielded with precision. The most striking example is the fear of Armageddon. The prophesied ultimate battle between God, good and evil. God's going to come and destroy everyone who's not right by God, which means being a witness in their theology. Members are taught from a very young age that only Jehovah's Witnesses will be saved when this apocalyptic event occurs. And that's believed to be imminent. There's a slight change in that. They think at the very end people can repent and turn around, but they still have to basically become witnesses to live. And this creates an existential urgency that keeps people aligned with the organization's teaching, driven by the fear of being on the wrong side when the end comes. Even people who have been out for decades still have those cobwebs if they haven't actively worked to remove that indoctrination from themselves. But it's not just Armageddon. There's a significant demonization of the outside world. Members are taught that society outside of their community is morally corrupt and under the influence of Satan the devil. And that worldview, it discourages them strongly from forming relationships with non-members, or worldly people as they call them. It's a slur to call someone worldly, whereas in the world, it's actually a compliment. It means they're wise, they're seasoned. And this worldly term, it reinforces that isolation and that dependence on the community. And the organization enforces such a strict set of rules that members are expected to follow. And there's disciplinary actions if you don't comply. The elders have a rule book called Shepherd the Flock of God, 290 pages, 70,000 words of rules. And it contains the mechanisms for enforcing those rules. And that includes everything from peer pressure to formal judicial committees for handling alleged wrongdoing. And these committees, they can mete out punishment that range from reproof, which is like a formal warning, to disfellowshipping, where members are completely shunned by their community, friends, and family. That disfellowshipping, man, that's severe. This isn't just spiritual condemnation. I mean, this is total social exile. And the practice reinforces conformity, not only out of fear of divine judgment, because it does that too, because if you die disfellowship at Armageddon, you're out. But it's also because of the very real world consequences of social isolation. Members know that if they step out of line, they could lose their entire social circle and family ties. And that creates a powerful disincentive to deviate from the group's norms. The combination of these fear-based control mechanisms, it creates a very tightly controlled environment. You have to understand that. It's very tough to break out of. Members are constantly reminded of the stakes, both the celestial stakes and the terrestrial stakes. This environment of fear and the strict enforcement of these rules, they ensure that deviations are rare, and they're usually dealt with pretty swiftly, which keeps the group tightly knit and aligned with the teachings and directives from the top. The fear of existential threat and immediate social repercussions, they work hand in hand. And it makes it very challenging for members of the Jehovah's Witnesses to even consider leaving, even if they have huge doubts. The panic that instills in your body and in your mind when you think about leaving, that's tough. This is some serious indoctrination, buddy. All right, then we've got emotional and existential security, and this is also very important to understand why Jehovah's Witnesses remain so committed despite so many challenges to their faith. You have to think about how emotionally and existentially secure the religion makes them feel. I mean, think about it. For many, this faith, it doesn't just offer a community, it answers life's biggest questions. Why are we here? What happens after we die? Who's going to protect me? Who's going to save me? These are profound uncertainties for anybody. And Jehovah's Witnesses offer a very clear, definitive answer to those questions. That brings comfort, a sense of purpose. The religion teaches that life on earth has a specific divine purpose, and that all human suffering and injustice will eventually be rectified. The promise of an earthly paradise, no death, no pain, where they live forever in peace, prosperity, happiness. That's a very compelling vision. I mean, of course, everybody else has to die before that happens, but push that aside for now. This isn't some vague notion of an afterlife or heaven or something like that. It's a concrete, vivid picture of the future the members look forward to. They had pictures of it all the time in their publications. You can imagine yourself there. That promise plays a huge role in how members perceive their lives and hardships. And they see this life as just temporary trials that need to be endured until they reach that future promise, which they absolutely believe in. This is not some nebulous, vague thought about the future. This is concrete and real to them. Jehovah's Witnesses are taught that their actions and their devotion in this life directly impact their chances of being in that paradise. And that creates a very strong incentive to adhere to the religion's teachings, to remain active within the community, not to cross the leadership who are God's spokespeople on earth. The emotional investment in this belief is enormous. And for someone who deeply gets embedded in this faith, the idea of the paradise, it's not some distant abstract hope. It's a real achievable future if you take the right steps, if you do the right work. It offers existential security. And there's very few other things that can provide that kind of security, a surety about the future in a world where so much is just inherently uncertain. The emphasis on this future and on this paradise, it also helps members cope with the fear and control aspects of the religion. I know, I get it, but it does. Even if they feel the weight of the organization's strict rules and the fear of apocalyptic destruction, well, they view these things as necessary to ensure their place in the paradise. I remember an illustration they used to use, talking about being in a cage. But what if that cage is underwater and there's a shark outside? Now it's not a cage, it's protection. It's not prison, it's protection. So there's a trade-off. And in their mind, it's worth being locked in because they're protected into a secure future. And that blend of emotional and existential security, it ensures that members have more than just fear keeping them in line. They also have hope. They have deep-seated purpose. It roots them firmly into that faith. And the profound appeal of these promised rewards ties members to the religion, not out of coercion alone, but also through a deeply emotional, existential commitment. I used to cry singing some of the songs about the paradise because I believed it so much. I wanted it so bad. It's a very powerful combination and a key reason why leaving the faith or even questioning it can be very daunting, almost impossible for a lot of people, especially if they've been in it a long time and they're old now. Now it's sunk cost fallacy. They were wrong. They wasted their entire life. But there's even more to it than that. There are challenges from the outside world. So let's talk about how Jehovah's Witnesses handle those challenges whenever they come at them, particularly the internet, YouTube, social media, that kind of thing. Because in this age of digital information, they do get tested. The internet has ushered in an unprecedented access to different viewpoints, information, the history of the religion, stuff that happened that the Watchtower doesn't want them to know. It makes it harder for any insular community to keep those external influences at bay. For a faith group that relies heavily on controlling the narrative and ensuring doctrinal purity, this flood of accessible, diverse information, it's pretty disruptive, and lots of people have left because of it. Yay. But some members, especially the younger generation that are raised in the digital age, they encounter this stuff online and it challenges what they believe, what they've been taught. That's why 2 out of 3 young people leave in the United States that are born in the religion. They leave by the time they're adults. All that cognitive dissonance that we talked about before, where they're struggling to reconcile their beliefs with all this contradictory evidence coming at them in these different perspectives, it wakes a lot of people up. And the internet also provides anonymity, right? Community for those who have doubts. They can get onto EXJW Reddit with a pseudonym and talk to people about their doubts, their problems, and get positive feedback. But yeah, you're not wrong. So they can explore those doubts without repercussions from the Kingdom Hall community, from the congregation or the Watchtower. But in response to these challenges, the organization has adapted, or it's trying to. And one significant move has been to just bolster their own online presence, to develop their own extensive digital resources to give members approved interpretations and information. Make them feel a little high-tech, like, they're moving along with Jehovah's Chariot. And that can be seen as an effort to counterbalance all of that external information that comes at members, to try to keep them within that informational ecosystem that the organization has built. It's a walled garden, so to speak. And then you've got the governing body. The central authority, again, of Jehovah's Witnesses is 9 old guys in New York. And sometimes they respond to these external pressures by changing the doctrines. And this has happened repeatedly. They allow beards now. Women can wear pants. Men don't have to wear suits. They don't have to clock time. Like these kinds of adjustments, which are presented as new light clarifications from God, they can help to mitigate that dissonance between the older stuff that they used to believe and the modern realities that we see in the world, the knowledge we have. But they also serve to reinforce the authority of the governing body. It emphasizes to the witness that they are only allowed to do those things because the governing body has said so, that they are the only source of divine truth, and that continues to help retain that cohesion and that obedience among some of the members. Yeah, a lot of people leave because of it, but some people just hang on tight. Remember, they have a lot to lose if they let go. And they continue to try to increase their control over that information. They espouse the dangers of worldly knowledge, the deceit of Satan, and the organization having God's trust, and you need to trust us. We've been good to you. Remember your promise. Remember your hope. Remember all this stuff. And they continually repeat this in the materials that they indoctrinate children and adults with from the time they're very, very young all the way up. They're conditioned to view anything from the outside, not just with skepticism, but with fear. The devil's trying to take away paradise from you by tricking you into believing something that's not true. The Watchtower actively works to maintain its own internal integrity, its own internal unity in face of all these challenges. But it highlights that there's an ongoing tension between controlling information and the growing difficulty of maintaining that bondage on Jehovah's Witnesses globally. And that's why you see so many changes. And for Jehovah's Witnesses navigating this new reality, it's a delicate balance between maintaining their doctrinal purity and adapting to this ever-changing, ever-evolving information landscape. They have a lot to lose, so they're hanging on to Daddy Watchtower for as long as possible. I just want to throw one more thing out there. In addition to the paradise, in addition to that hope of a perfect future where all your ailments are gone, there's no more war, there's no more illness, there's no more problems, no more pain, no more money issues, you have prosperity, peace, beauty, happiness, health, everything. You were also taught that all of the people you love who have died will be there with you. They will be resurrected in perfection in paradise. And if you let go of that belief, you have to let go of the hope of these people that you long to see, that you miss, that causes your heart to ache when you think about them. You have to be willing to let go of that. And that is a price that is very hard for some people to pay. So yeah, the commitment of a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses, man, their faith is deeply rooted in that combination of psychological, social, and institutional control. From the indoctrination that they face from a very young age and the powerful social bonds that form that tight grip on their community, to the intense use of fear and other control mechanisms, the existential security that's provided by the beliefs, all of these elements play a crucial role in maintaining loyalty from Jehovah's Witnesses. And as the internet, YouTube, social media, Reddit, as they continue to challenge these boundaries by offering all this unprecedented access to information, it really does make you wonder, how much longer will this high control group continue to exist? How far will it go to adapt? Will the increasing flow of information encourage more questioning, more change? Or will these communities find new ways to maintain their hold in an ever-changing world? I would love to know what you think, so please leave a comment below. Don't forget to like this video if you did in fact like it, to subscribe to my channel for more videos like it, and be sure to set notifications so you'll be notified when I release new videos. If you want to support the work I'm doing, you can click the join button below. If you don't see the join button, there's a link to become a channel member in the video description. Love you guys. Hope that makes it clear to you about how difficult it can be to leave this religion. And as always, thanks for watching.